We have a new evolution of the Mazda Kodo design language from two concepts that were shown on the Japan Mobility Show. We have the Vision X Coupe and the Vision X Compact. And there are some very cool things about these designs, but there are also some very strange things going on, not just with the design, but also the technology that I am not a fan of whatsoever. So we're going to talk about all of this in this video. Both these concepts, of course, have a look at those in Photoshop right here to see what is going on with Mazda's new design language. It's still, you could still call it, Kodo design language for sure, but it is at the same time a pretty drastic evolution of what we're used to seeing from Mazda with these two new concepts. So before we do that, let's jump in, of course, to not to Photoshop just yet. Let's check out this article from Car Scoops. What these concepts are and what's so strange about the compact concept that we're gonna look at in just a minute. It's just the times we're heading in right now. But first of all, let's have a look at this Vision X Coupe and let me know what you think about this design. First of all, I want to hear your opinion. Is this the right move? Is Mazda moving in the right direction when it comes to the design language, or do you want to go back a little bit and not have such a drastic change for the Kodo design language? Let me know in the comments below. So Mazda brings back turbo rotary engine with Vision X Coupe, 503 horsepower, turbocharged rotary hybrid powertrain. Now, pretty cool. And somehow manages to clean the air as it drives too. So you have this carbon cleaning system or something like that in this vehicle. Very crazy stuff. It's a stylish four-door coupe created for 2035. And I do think this is actually going to be something that is very close to production when we eventually see the production version. So the concept clearly builds on the familiar Kodo design language. You got a fully enclosed grille, which is broken up by like two fangs in the front end, just cutting through everything that is so beautiful about the style, the subtleness. And then you have two spikes, super sharp, just cutting into the metal. I'm not sure if, the fact that it annoys me so much is also a reason why I like it so much. It's kind of weird because it breaks up everything that is so clean about the design, that it creates something that just the eye instantly focuses on, and that is what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to invoke an emotion when you're looking at it, and I think those fangs in the front end of this coupe concept, that's exactly what they're doing for me. You have an upright rear end with playful taillights, and these taillights, they look a little too squiggly for me, and they don't have any sort of, they sit flush with the bodywork. They don't have any sort of chamfers or housings for them. So it looks a little strange to me, maybe a little too expressive for my taste. But I have to wait and see what they're going to do for this production version whenever that comes out. So the concept's significantly larger than the Mazda 6. It's 7.3 inches longer and an extra 9.9 inches in the wheelbase. However, when you look at this interior, today in 2025, I think I've reviewed Mazda's entire lineup this year. The CX-30, the CX-50, the Miata, the CX-70, the CX-90. I've had them all, and I love the interior that Mazda is doing. And I don't want to see them move away from the layout that we have in the interiors for Mazda right now. And looking at this interior right here, I actually really like what's going on because this is still extremely minimal interior. But you can see that we have these beautiful digital gauges here that has this retro style to them. You also have a display right here in the center of the steering wheel. And the overall design for the interior looks pretty clean to me. Very low dash. We don't have any screens sticking up below these two parallel lines here. We're going to have a look at this more in detail in Photoshop in a minute. So you got digital instrument cluster broken up into three separate gauges, retro-inspired graphics, and you have this display on the steering wheel. You got a wide center console and baseball-like shifter, which looks pretty cool. Now here you can see the rear end. If you just zoom in on this area, the C-pillar or the rear axle, the fender over the rear axle, it definitely has this Mazda 3 hatchback style to it, which I've always been such a huge fan of. In this case, it still looks good, but I actually think, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I think the greenhouse actually sits too low and it's too squished in this area or in this concept. And I want to have the greenhouse be a little taller and not have this curvature going down. But we're going to talk more about this. It's easier to show you in Photoshop what exactly it is I'm talking about, because it's pretty hard to explain just looking at the pictures. So you got a turbocharged rotary engine, an electric motor, and an undisclosed battery pack with a combined output of 503 horsepower, which is great. Don't want to have more horsepower than that. You know, we're getting to ridiculous numbers now. We don't need to just stack more horsepower into these vehicles. 500 horsepower is more than enough, depending on the weight, I would say. So you got an electric range of 99 miles, which is also pretty cool. So on the carbon capture side of things, Mazda has developed the technology here that can pull CO2 emission directly from the exhaust and clean it. It's pretty nuts to think about. This is definitely my favorite view for this vehicle, this 3/4 front view. It looks absolutely stunning in this design. And here you can clearly see the Coda design language, which, by the way, is, how do you explain the Coda design language? It's about, they say here, the soul of emotion. And it's supposed to be a movement in the vehicle as it's standing still. Focus on play of light and shadows, elegant curves, and the use of empty space. And that is exactly what's going on when you look at these designs. You can see just the fluidity in these empty spaces. If you just look at it like this, there's no straight lines, there's no sharp lines in here. But even if we lack that, we still have a lot of movement in the surfacing itself. It's very fluid and organic, and that is what I always loved about the Coda design language. And then we have this. The Mazda Vision X Compact might be a little too friendly, they say here. It's smaller than the Mazda 2 and fully embraces AI. Now, this is going to be, I'm not sure how to put it. I mean, it's inevitable that AI is going to be integrated in cars, but if it was up to me, I would not want to have any sort of AI technology integrated in cars. I know it might sound old school and strange because everything is going to be AI eventually, but at the same time, they say here they envision to have a conversational AI that is your friend. So the Compact has a fully enclosed grille that is accompanied by illuminated fangs again. And like we had the Coupe, they like the fangs here. I think that is going to be part of Mazda's design language moving forward. They are the daytime run lights, by the way. You also have a illuminated Mazda logo. You got black cladding and aerodynamically optimized wheels. I'm going to come back to the AI in just a minute. They're joined by a panoramic glass roof. And look at this gauge cluster here. This is absolutely beautiful. If they can put something like this in production, I would be a huge fan. We don't even have an infotainment screen. Instead, they say people have their phones on them all the time anyway, so what's the point of adding another screen where you can just attach your phone and have that be the infotainment screen by itself, just next to the gauge cluster like this. I like this way of thinking from Mazda with the Coupe to have those 3 gauges and also have a simple little gauge cluster here. Even though when it's so minimalistic, it still looks very empty in here. You know, I'm torn between if I like it or not, because it still doesn't feel that welcoming to me, even though I do love the graphics that Mazda is doing. You got a flat bottom steering wheel as well as circular digital instrument cluster. Now, here's the crazy part about these cars that Mazda really hopes to integrate in future cars of Mazda. They say the Mazda envisions the concept would be empathetic artificial intelligence that acts as a companion. The company said this would enable people and vehicles to form an emotional connection, much like a heartfelt friendship. Now, to me, the way I create a connection with the car is not through anything artificial. Everything in society today is becoming more and more artificial and fake. And I'm honestly sick of it. I think social media in general, here I am on YouTube creating YouTube videos, but I think social media in general, has it been a net positive or a net negative? I'm not entirely sure. I think honestly it's been a net negative, because if you're old enough to remember the times before social media and before now even AI coming into cars and becoming this fake friend of yours, if you remember the times before all this, even before internet, I mean, internet is a net positive, I would say, but social media specifically, I don't think it has had a positive impact overall on society. It feels like we're connected to everybody these days, but at the same time, these connections are not real. They're not face-to-face human connections anymore. And we have this loneliness epidemic in the world in general today, and I think a lot of that has to do with social media, because everybody seems to have everything figured out on social media, and 90% of it is all fake, and you have all these followers, but no one is really a close friend of yours. If you have one close friend today, a real friend, not an AI friend, I would consider you to be very lucky, and that is the reason why I don't want to see AI being implemented in cars like this. I don't want to see this. The connection I want to see with cars is through the mechanical feel and the natural noise of the engine and the transmission, the clunkiness and all of that. That is how I would personally build a connection to any sort of mechanical product, and not to this digital stuff that is overtaking everything right now. So as they explained, the AI will act as a friend and say things like, nice merge, or hey, remember that cafe you mentioned last week? There is a fun back road that will take us there. I don't need my car to tell me that. I know that myself if I look at my map, and then I can have a connection with the car as we're driving along to that destination. I don't want the car to talk to me like Kit from Knight Rider. The AI will be able to learn and read your mood, so you're probably going to have a forward-facing camera that's just facing your face, pointed in your face the entire time to figure out what kind of mood you're in, or if you want to talk or not. I never want to talk. I mean, the only times I'm really expressive is when I talk about things I enjoy. Other than that, I'm a very quiet person. I don't really like small talk and stuff like that. And if I don't like small talk with people, I definitely do not want to do small talk with the car I'm driving. It's just crazy to me, the wave of AI and fakeness that is just all around us these days. I'm not a huge fan of what's going on. I don't see a way of stopping it either. It's just going to continue to become more and more and more. So with that said, with that rant session, let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at what's going on with these two designs. The new Coda design language that we have from Mazda. I want to hear your opinion on this, because I think they look beautiful from the exterior. There's just a couple of things. For example, the X Coupe here. As I said, with these fangs in the front end, these are the only features that break, like heavily break this Coda design language, and crashes like a huge explosion between these two features here and the rest of the bodywork that is so subtle and so beautiful and so smooth everywhere. I mean, look at the side view here and the fluidness that we have here, and also the hood. We don't even have any sharp lines in the hood, I don't think. And then also we have these very thin headlights in the front end. It still clearly looks like a Mazda to me, because Mazda has been refining this design language for a while now. And the Coda design language is something Mazda has done for a long time and really set them apart from other car brands. And looking at the side view here, it's a pretty beautiful looking design, but as I said, I think the greenhouse is just a little too low, and it goes down, all the way down, and never really goes back up. I want to have a little bit of an upswing in the rear section here and not have this pointiness in the rear. I do like the wheel design. It looks pretty cool. And the overall line flow that we have a subtle line right here. If we extend it, it's going to connect straight to this line that we have in the lower section of the side. We're going into this area right here, looking beautiful. And we also have this shoulder line right here going down and creating a very extremely short overhang in the front, and also a pretty short overhang right there in the rear. I do like this graphic though, even though these might also be considered something that breaks up the design, but it doesn't break it up in such an extreme way like they do in the front end with these daytime run lights right here. Looking at the rear end, this is where it becomes a little tricky for me with these graphics, because I don't feel like these graphics has anything to do with what goes on around the graphics. It doesn't have any sort of connection to the bodywork itself. And I feel like they're completely out of place, to be honest, with these graphics that we have going on here. I would much rather have them have some sort of connection, because these are key graphics. They're not just regular, random small graphics on the car. These are the headlights, the tail lights of the vehicle. Very important part, and they need to have some sort of connection to what's going on in the overall body of the car. But look at the beautiful line flow. Not really line flow, but surfacing that we have going on for Mazda in this Coda design language, looking absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, we have the interior right here. I love this integration of these gauges. It looks very, very clean, and also this small screen that we have, and the entire steering column here looks very beautiful. You can see the mechanical pieces here looking nice. And we have these two lines that we talked about in the article. We don't have any sort of screen sticking up above or below these lines. Everything sits within these two parallel lines, even though it might look a little bit too minimalistic still, because there's really not a lot going on for this interior. We just have these screens here and these gauges and the gear selector down here, which looks pretty nice as well. I do like the quality. It has a nice quality feel of this interior, which is something Mazda has done very well, even in the production vehicles right now. The CX-90, the CX-70 interiors are just stunning to sit in, and we still have the traditional layout of the gauge cluster, the infotainment screen at the correct places there. Now looking at the compact, if we just disregard the fact that this is supposed to be an AI friend of yours you can talk to, and that will cheer you up when you're sad, I guess, or when you're angry, you're gonna calm you down. It's some crazy stuff. Just looking at the design itself, it's a very funky, cool looking design. Now this is a very small vehicle. It's smaller than the Mazda 2. We have some nice designs for the headlights here. I do like these a lot better than we have on the Coupe, because we have a pretty dynamic daytime run lights here going from thick into a thinner piece. And these fangs, for some reason, feel better integrated in this compact design. I feel in the Coupe, they're still a little bit more out of place than they are right here. Even though these break up the design in a similar way, it feels a little bit more natural to have them in this vehicle. We can see the surfacing here, very fluid, very clean. There is not a lot going on. And this reminds me of the Mazda 3 in this area again, which is one of the best looking hatchbacks ever made, in my opinion, the Mazda 3. We don't have any sort of sharp shoulder line or anything like that on the Mazda 3, and we don't have that here either. The cut line for the door is also very similar to what we have on the Mazda 3, and you can see the reflections here. Absolutely beautiful design, very clean design, and this is what I want to see more of in today's car design. And I do think the graphics in the rear, here at least you can see that we have a connection to this line of the brake light up here, this LED right here, and then it has this curvature to it that I feel, even though it doesn't really follow any key graphics in the rear, this integration is a lot better integrated than the squiggliness that we have going on for the Coupe, in my opinion. I also like the diffuser that we have in the lower section, and we have almost, we could call this a bumper being integrated right there with the Mazda logo illuminated in this area. I do like the wheel design as well, and this is a vehicle that I definitely want to see go into production. Now looking at the interior, pretty clean interior here, with the dash being extremely simplistic, just this red bar. Then you have these, I'm not sure what these are, but I guess they hold the gauge cluster in some way. I also like the steering wheel. Always love the small circle that we have in the production versions of Mazda these days as well. Just a small Mazda circle in the middle, looking absolutely fantastic. You can see that the side mirrors are now cameras, something that will not be in use in any production vehicle anytime soon in the US because of regulations. Yeah, they are allowed in Europe, though. I think that is going to change here pretty soon. And the overall design here, I can't really see where the seats are. Maybe there is like a couch situation down here with the seats. I'm not entirely sure, with the separation in the middle. So overall, it's a clean development or evolution of Mazda's design language, Coda design language. The only thing I'm worried about is just this integration, as we talked about in this video. All this tech, is that something that you want to see in cars moving forward? Or maybe you're like me, you want to see cars still be very unique products that are not affected as much as everything else, TVs, phones, what have you, by AI. I still want to have cars be in a separate category, or at least a segment of cars, to still have this connection that I'm looking for when it comes to cars, which is to the mechanical feel of the car and not the digital vibes.